studying this closely because of the fact that we found in the Old Testament in Numbers chapter 23 verse 19 and in 1 John, a statement or two statements that were really significant to all of us as people who have been kind of following religious journeys all of our life. In the book of Numbers, it identifies God, and it says God is not a man. And that's something that we haven't really dwelled upon a lot as people and going to church, because we've been praying to a man, and we've been asking a father and all this stuff, and all of a sudden our eyes are drawn to this statement: what you're calling God is not a man, not a human. Not a human. And so then we start thinking, goodness gracious, how do we communicate? And if it's not a human, what is it? So then we look in the New Testament, and it comes back, and he said, God is light. Well, once this is made clear, it opens up a whole new thing about what does light do? How does light impact us? And then we find that NASA puts out a paper we've been studying for several weeks, that they are now developing optical computers, computers run by light, that can do in 1 hour what a computer today would take 11 years to do. And that this light, they have found that in order to make this work, they use membrane, organic tissue, living human tissue. And so now we're reaching the stage of proving the fact that light, God, coming down from above on an angle of light, an angel of light, a messenger particle, or as scientists say, a photon, can actually enter into our bodies and change logic circuits, change the way we think, change the way we feel. So it really becomes a very, very interesting thing. So we started then studying in depth the pineal gland of the brain. And the pineal gland plays a very prominent part in the Bible, because Jesus says, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light, which we now know is God. And then Jacob says, I have seen God face to face, and I'll call the place Pineal. So we have the Old Testament telling us God is not a man. We have the New Testament telling us God is light. We have the New Testament saying, if your eye be single. And we have the Old Testament saying, I've seen God, it's at the pineal. And then we had René Descartes, the 1600s philosopher from France, who tells us that the place where God meets you inside of your body is the pineal gland of the brain. So then we spent a week or two analyzing this pineal gland of the brain. Like an animal, like what would you call, like a salamander, or one of these vertebrates that hang out in the swamps and so forth, their pineal gland is open and closed by light or the lack of light. But in a human being, it's attached to your eyes. So you regulate it. It then becomes up to you, see, if you're going to go into a dark place and close your eyes, or if you're going to open your eyes, and in which case the pineal would shut down. In either case, it's going to secrete melatonin at around 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the morning. So we function with the pineal gland. And what my concern about all of this is this. Okay, we know that light comes down from above on an angle, and it's been doing that for millions of years. And we know that people have been meditating for thousands of years, at least hundreds. And the world's still pretty much of a mess. So what has been missing? What can you do as a human being to place yourself into a harmony with this light? Because we've proved by NASA, in a statement that they said electrons are attracted by photons and vice versa. Well, if a photon is an angle of light from above, God, and if the electron is in the pineal gland and you stimulate that, then you are attracting an angle of light, or you are attracting an angel of God. But how do you do this? And can you do it? I mean, Jesus says, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. Fine. So we're talking about stimulating the pineal gland. Can you do that? Is it possible for you to do that? I mean, is walking into a dark room enough? Well, walking into a dark room will open the pineal gland? Yes. But I mean, people have been walking into dark rooms forever, and it doesn't seem to have stimulated anything necessarily positive. Gosh, I mean, if we look at the brutalization of people in different parts of the world's a mess. It's not a mess for me. I got a nice house, got a nice wife, I'm having a good time. But while I'm having a good time, I know that there are kids and people in different places in the world that are living in cardboard and starving and all of these terrible things happen. When I'm having a good time, I see pictures on television of the brutalization of little dogs and cats and greyhounds and all this. What the heck is this? So I'm having a good time and I'm enjoying it, but a vast amount of life has been terribly brutalized. So something is wrong. Something is wrong. How do I change it? Can I change it? How do I change myself? How do you start to flow in a harmony with this photon, with this angel of light, with God? So we studied then, if there is going to be one place in your body, it is not going to be in your heart, it's not going to be in your hand, it's not going to be in your elbow, it's going to be in your pineal gland, because that's the light receptor of the body. So if what we want to happen, if what is going to happen is what you've been trying to make happen all of these years going to church, then it's going to have to center here. And we've got scriptural proof of that. We've got the proof of the Bible in the Old Testament, which says, I shall call the place Pineal. We've got the proof of the Bible in the New Testament, which says, practice the single eye. We've got the statement of René Descartes, who said that's where the soul and the body meet in your body. It's in the pineal gland. And René Descartes was not just a philosopher. René Descartes gave us the basis of our theory of light, the laws of reflection and refraction. So, I mean, he was an extremely competent witness. But how do we activate the pineal gland? What can you do to start flowing in a harmony, especially in this time of Eta Carina, this great star that is sending down DNA and changing the DNA? I mean, my God, you know, in Canada last week, I don't know if you read about this, they cured 13 people of type 1 diabetes. Not made them feel better, cured it. Now, there's a hang-up to that. They have to take this medicine that stops rejection. But the point is, they've cured. I mean, and the doctors from the Sloan Kettering Cancer Institute in New York say that disease as we know it will not exist in 5 years. That cancer will be gone in 5 years. I mean, you know, and I told this to one person, said, well, I would think 50. What do you mean you would think 50? These are scientists from Sloan Kettering that say 5. I'm going with that. But what's happening? How come they're learning all of these things about DNA, about genetics? And they're learning, let's stop trying to kill cancer cells. Let's find the switch and turn it off. You see, let me tell you something. There are some people that say, well, you know, I think, like René Descartes said, I think, therefore I am, and I create this life on the basis of my thoughts. You, as this angle of light that nested in your mother's womb at birth, or, you know, gestation period, you're one part of the thought process. You share your body with others who are also in their thinking. You think, oh, you know, I'm going to live, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and do the other thing. And there are cells inside of your body that are thinking, we're going to go over here. And when they go over there, you're going to get very sick. So, and the reason they're going over there instead of staying over here where they belong is because they're reading your DNA, and your DNA is screwed up. And your DNA is saying, go over there instead of stay here. So inside of a human body, there are other people, if you wish to call them that, who are plotting things, planning things, and going to act these things out, regardless of what you think. And you know what's going to happen then? When they do what they do, then your thinking is going to change. Totally. All of a sudden, you're going to wake one day, and when I say you, I'm not. But all of a sudden, somebody then wakes one day, and somebody goes to a doctor because they don't quite feel well. Why? Because other things inside of you decided on something that you had nothing to do with, and it made you sick. So you're not the only one inside of that body thinking. And when they decide on something different for you, then the doctor said, well, I hate to tell you this, but what? What the heck how could this happen? Because some other living entity inside of your body decided to do something. And the reason that that living entity inside of your body decided to do something was because you have a DNA and it's A, B, C, D, but in there it was A, B, F, C, and the cells read this instead of reading that, and so they went over here when they should have stayed here, and it screwed everything up. So now, the scientists are finding out all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute. You know how we can heal this cancer? You know how we can heal this Alzheimer's? You know how we can heal this diabetes? Let's do this. Let's find out how we can reboot this thing. Did you ever reboot a computer? Computer doesn't work. It's all screwed up. Everything, hey, what the heck is this? I can't get this to work. I'm hitting the thing. Shut it off. And you shut it off and turn it back on again. It's fine. So let's do something, because the cells are reading this and thinking that they should be here when they shouldn't be here. Let's get rid of this. Let's clean it out. You see, that when you went to church when you were a little kid, they used to say everybody's born with original sin. You know what it is? It's screwed up DNA is exactly what they were talking about. They didn't know they were talking about that, but that's what they were talking about, mutant DNA. So we'll get rid of that. And now not only will the disease stop, because these cells will stop multiplying, and they'll say, whoa, wait a minute. We shouldn't be over here. Let's get back where we belong. And that's the end of that. So this is what they're finding, and these are the wonderful things. So we want to start to flow in a harmony, because the reason that the scientists are finding all this stuff out is that they are having gates in their brains opened by light coming from above. And it's opening the gates and giving them understanding. So we focus then on, let's focus on the pineal gland of the brain, because that is the place, that is the light receptor of the brain. And that's why I encourage you to come out in meditation, for your children's sake. I mean, you want your kids to have, you want you to have this. This is the time to do it. And I would suggest you come out of here. You come in, this room gets absolutely pitch black. And when it's pitch black and dark in here and the sounds, you then focus on the pineal gland. It opens and you receive the angels of light. To change what must be changed and to correct what must be corrected. But the point is, and you have a right to ask me this question, is it possible to do that? Now, let me just show you something from Dr. Alfred Louis, which was taken from the New York Times in Overhead 283. And in Overhead 283, if you could, Al, if you could just focus on this, in my briefcase there's that little gray thing that I use for the, okay. But anyhow, here, this is pineal gland hormone can reset the body's clock. And what it says here, after traveling through nerves in the spinal cord, the signal reaches the pineal gland. In the absence of light, the gland begins the production of melatonin. Darkness stimulates production of the hormone melatonin. Production is abruptly suppressed in bright light. Thank you. Okay? So this, and what is it? Understanding the hormone of darkness. And so when we have meditation then on Tuesday night, the room is absolutely dark. So we went through several scientific articles last week, if you remember, which basically said the same thing, namely that the pineal gland is active in the absence of light. It is the body's time clock, and it functions via the two physical eyes, leaving it up to you as to when you choose to activate it, other than when it does it by itself when you sleep at night. So the evidence was very conclusive, I think. So it appears that the pineal gland of the brain is suppressed by bright light. It appears that it's not active in the light. Another word for the pineal gland, and you can look this in a scientific Stedman's Medical Dictionary. The pineal gland is known by another word which people in religion are very familiar with. The pineal gland is also known as epiphysis. In religion, we have holy days called Epiphany. It means enlightenment. If you look in Stedman's Medical Dictionary, you'll say pineal gland, it tells what it does. It says also KKA, epiphysis. If the pineal is epiphany, if the pineal is the pineal that Jacob referred to in Genesis 32, if it is the single eye that Jesus referred to, then wouldn't it seem reasonable that when meditating to make contact with the supreme light being you know as God, one would stimulate it when it was most energetically reacting, which would be in darkness. So what is interesting about this is the fact that the light, which is God, according to the Scriptures, is darkness. The light and the dark are the same thing. In order to see the light, you've got to activate the pineal, because the light that you're going to see is invisible and can't be seen. Okay. What the heck is he talking about? Watch. If you have, for instance, let's look at this way. Here you have God is light. But it is light that cannot be seen. Okay. It cannot be seen. So it's ultraviolet or a form of light that is even beyond the spectrum that we understand. But it's an invisible light. So your pineal gland could see it in the darkness because it's not the kind of light like this is light, all right? So here then you go into the darkness because you're going to try to activate that gland which can see this light, and you open the pineal. And here then the pineal is able to see this light, which is no physical light at all. It's electromagnetism is what it is. Okay? So in order to see the light, one must activate the pineal gland because this light is invisible and cannot be seen with the physical eyes. It can only be seen by that single eye. So since we can't see in the dark, and the light, which is God, cannot be seen, it would mean, ready for this one, that the light is actually the dark, and the dark is actually the light. In other words, here I'm standing here in the light. You all can see me. But I cannot see the light that is God, which is invisible light. Can you? Look around. So I know that in order for me to see that light, I should be in the dark, so that the light receptor, which is the pineal gland, would see that. There are several scriptures that are significant when considering this. Let's look at overhead B47 for a minute. Look at this. Psalms 18:11. He made darkness his secret place. Okay? When you pray, enter into your closet, shut the door, and pray to your Father, which is in secret. Whoa, wait a minute. You see two words here that are very similar? Secret and secret. Pray to your Father in secret, in his secret place. Where? In the darkness. Meditate in the darkness. Look at Amos here. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. And again, shall not the day of the Lord be darkness, and not light even very dark, and no brightness in it? Why? Why does it have to be dark? Because the pineal gland becomes active in the darkness. And Jacob says, I have seen God face to face. You see, and I did this again last night. You may not like that. You may say, I want to meditate in the daytime. Go ahead. And I do too. Go to the beach. And it's 250 degrees and the sun is shining and everybody's sweating to meditate. Go ahead. And it's a beautiful place to meditate. Meditate about the family. Meditate about your health. But you're not going to make contact for a particular reason that the pineal gland is going to be closed down in that bright light. You've got to do this according to the way nature says to do it. Maybe the church doesn't like that. Maybe the pastors don't like that. Maybe the priests and the rabbis don't like that. But that's irrelevant. Because this is evidently the way that the light likes it.